What's going on, guys? It's been a slow week. Kind of. Been a busy week for sales, or, well, busy week for work. Lots of things happening. Unfortunately, my days off has changed, so toy hunts are getting harder to do. But at the same time, it's kind of good because I'm saving money and spending it on online shopping. Which means I have a lot of things coming in, little by little. As you saw with my mailbox, I got in the 4 new Masterverse characters. Got in actually some new stuff, so still need to do another mailbox. But I did get a few things on the last toy hunt, so I wanted to kind of do a review. Really small review, because all I really picked up is Fist of the Northstar 6 for the Super Famicom. Which reminds me, I do need to pick up. Well, there's a lot of games I need to pick up. Oh, God. And I have no room for them. Joy. Just reminded me of a game for Genesis called The Last Battle, a side-scrolling game. This game actually it's got English. Hoku to no Kim. Hoku to no Kim. This is a fighting game. I think the original game was a side-scroller. There is a PS2 version, which I have. Unfortunately, it was only made in Japan, just as this series. It kind of plays like the Arc system style games. Which is pretty cool. Like I said, there's a lot of games I still need to get. Genesis, honestly, I don't recall too many Japanese Genesis games. But then again, Genesis was Sega, I think. Yeah, Sega Genesis. Which is strange. It feels like they should have a lot of Japanese producers or companies that would want to make games for them. I did love a lot of the Genesis American games, though. Do have another Super Famicom game coming in, as well as a PS2 game coming in. To kind of complete or get closer to completion of one of my collections. But there is a Japanese game called Cutie Angel. It is a wrestling game on the Sega Genesis. I should look up wrestling games on the Genesis. I only know of 2 games, Cutie Angel and Fire Pro. For Japanese. All the other wrestling games I know is American. So my intent excuse me, is to try and build a collection of wrestling games, of funny games, of RPGs, especially the ones that I remember playing and loving. There are a ton of games that I would love to have. And, I have not gone and made a video of that yet. And today I've actually had the time to think and ask myself why. I'm sure some of you might be interested in my video game collection. Allergies are building up again. So I might definitely do a couple videos, try and break things down. Maybe do a Nintendo video, Super Nintendo video. Genesis, break each down for each system. It's not a big collection yet, thankfully. But it's a start. definitely looking for more. But, you know, I've been trying to do a lot of collections. Funkos, figures, DVDs. And it does feel like I've been lacking on both DVDs and video game collections. But hopefully as I'm finishing up some of the action figure collections, I can definitely go through and start finishing both DVDs and video game collections. You know, at one point I was going through each console and trying to figure out which game I would love to get for each console or games. I definitely need to finish that. Next vacation. Probably finish that and finally get or start to go down that list. But besides the Fist of the Northstar game, I did pick up a number of comics. Just G.I. Joe and Shogun Warriors. Getting closer to completing the collection, I guess. Or the collection I want. I definitely still need G.I. Joe number 1. That was just a great story. I do have the G.I. Joe Compendium, as well as the digital versions of each. I do want to pick up the Transformers Compendium 1 and 2. I will be getting the digital versions of the collection I ordered, I believe, on the 18th of this month. So that should be fun. But I did pick up G.I. Joe number 2 for an insane price. This is the second printing, though. Spider-Man. But holy crap. This was a pretty good story. Other than that, I picked up G.I. Joe number 34. Again, a really good story. So I don't remember exactly what started it. But this entire comic is Ace being mad about something, which I forget, and Wild Weasel being mad about something, and both of them deciding to cool off, go for a flight. They run into each other, and the entire book probably 70%, 75% of the comic is this insane aerial battle between the two aces of G.I. Joe and Cobra. And that's it. Just one Rattler with Wild Weasel and one Sky Striker with Ace going head to head. And the ending the ending is neither getting shot down. Both the Rattler and the Sky Striker are badly damaged. Every missile has been fired. Every ammunition for the guns have been used. They have nothing left, and all you see is them flying by each other, introverted, at the end, and just looking at each other and showing each other respect, and then leaving. I don't think you'd ever see that in any other story. Definitely, it was one of my favorite stories in the G.I. Joe comics. Not only because it was just an all-out aerial dogfight, but it was the two top aces of each organization, and neither one could get shot down. But in the cartoon, they get shot down quite a few times by luck. To me, I've always found that funny. So to actually get that comic, for me personally, is pretty great. I think the only other comic before that I kind of want is, I can't remember the number, but it's the first appearance of Zartan. The cover is basically Wild Bill, I believe, in the Dragonfly, Cobra Commander driving a water moccasin, and Zartan is standing on the water moccasin trying to shoot at the Dragonfly. It's a great cover. And I have to go back and read the story. I just thought it was a great cover, and I mean, it's the first appearance of Zartan. Amazing. Also picked up G.I. Joe 52. Storm Shadow versus Quick Kick. Again, it was a full circle story for me. So if I recall, this is after they bring back Storm Shadow. Well, in the comic book, Destro kills Storm Shadow. And while Destro is helping Dr. Mindbender create Serpentor, Dr. Mindbender is actually operating on Storm Shadow and brings him back. However, by bringing back Storm Shadow from death, Cobra Commander's mind wipe doesn't return. So Storm Shadow starts figuring out his past of him infiltrating Cobra to find out who killed the Hard Master, finding out it was Zartan. But in this story, he goes to G.I. Joe headquarters as the silent intruder. Snake Eyes went to the Cobra Fortress, ripped through all of the Cobra's troopers to rescue Scarlet, with the ending of showing Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes went to the same ninja school and were brothers, sort of. In this story, Storm Shadow actually breaks into G.I. Joe headquarters, beats literally every Joe. Doesn't hurt him, doesn't kill him. Doesn't hurt him bad. Lots of times it's just knocking him out or knocking him for a loop to get to Snake Eyes. And the last two people standing between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes is Quick Kick and Scarlet. And Quick Kick tries to go one-on-one with Storm Shadow, and it doesn't go anywhere great. It's hilarious. Then he looks at Scarlet and is like, last time we kidnapped you, he killed everybody. Shows her respect And she moves out of the way because she finds out that Storm Shadow just wants to talk to his brother. And the whole story ends with Snake Eyes giving Storm Shadow the key to his cabin in the forest, where Storm Shadow meets Timber. And that is pretty much the last panel in the comic. Storm Shadow walks into the cabin, looks around, puts his bag down, hears something behind of him, turns around, sees Timber. And he looks at Timber and is like, "My brother told me a lot about you." Bends down. Timber just walks up to him, smells him, and smells Snake Eyes on him. And it just basically is the switch of Storm Shadow going from Cobra to becoming, or starting to become, a full-fledged member of G.I. Joe. So that comic means a lot. It really was the full circle of the Silent Intruder comic. And to actually get that comic, for me as a fan of both Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, it's a lot. So I do have one more G.I. Joe comic. Unfortunately, it's part one of a trilogy. So I need to find the next 2 issues. And again, this is another full circle comic. So I can't remember the issues. I think it was 24, 25. But the early issues introduced us to the team of Stalker, Snake Eyes, and Tommy. In the Vietnamese War. This is where we get to see how Snake Eyes got his face destroyed, why Snake Eyes can't speak. It's basically his origin story. The counterpart to it is issues 94, 95, and 96. Starting with Snake Eyes' new face. So I think in the last issue, 93, Snake Eyes finally decides he wants to marry Scarlet, but he knows that he can't because his face is so damaged that nobody wants to be with him. So he finds the best doctor for plastic surgery he can. And I believe in this issue, he comes in with his face wrapped up before the surgery. Sits down on the chair to get the surgery. They unwrap his face, and as soon as they unwrap his face, one nurse is so horrified, she kind of disappears into the corner. The other one is so horrified, she faints. But it is a very wouldn't say great story, but it's definitely one of those stories where you feel like something has changed. And he does get the surgery. For most of the issue, he's got the bandages wrapped around so nobody sees his face. I do remember, I can't remember what issue it was, but he was going into a classified area. And he was dressed in his dress uniform with the bandages. It might have been in this issue. And the security just looks at him and it's like, "Sir, I'm sorry, you can't be here. We need you to leave." And it's literally like telling him this is restricted. And in my head, all I thought was, this is Snake Eyes. He could either kill you or he could sneak past you. Luckily, I think it was a colonel who was walking past, turns around, looks at Snake Eyes, looks at the security, and it starts yelling at the security. And the security looks at the officer and is like, "Sir, he doesn't have clearance. He's just this low-level officer." Snake Eyes in his dress is dripping in metals. Like, literally. And the officer is like, "I don't care what level he is, somebody with that much metals, with the Purple Heart," which he didn't die, so I don't know if he had it. But they did say he did have the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But then again, he should have died in Vietnam. I mean, come on. That was one of the most gruesome things ever. And you really don't get to see his face until after this comics. But even after that, it's small glimpses. In the original story, or origin story, he always had a cap on, so the shadow was always like where you only saw certain parts. But even try not to imagine what it looks like. The comic to keep it PG just showed you his back with him holding Scarlet. But there was an explosion in his face. The helicopter's blade cut his neck and his vocal cord. And even the picture from the back, you just saw pieces of skin sticking out. And seeing Tommy and Stalker's face staring at him like, how are you still alive? And even getting facial reconstruction didn't fix that until this issue. So that has to be at least 5 years. Maybe more. Maybe 10 years. Of walking around with all of those scars. The saddest part is, even with reconstructing his face and actually kind of seeing what he originally looked like, they could not fix his vocal cords. So in the comics, like everything else, he never actually talked ever. I did like that though, that the in the comics, or in the cartoons, Scarlet and Duke kind of had a thing in the beginning, then you kind of find out that she cares for Snake Eyes too. But it never tells you why. In the comics, it literally tells you that Snake saves her life in that helicopter crash. So she stays by his side because she believes she should be dead. It really wasn't about love until it became about love. Well, I mean, Snake Eyes loved her from the very beginning. But even in the origin story, he never really talked. So she never knew how much he loved her until then. And she literally felt like it was because of her that he would never find happiness. But she ends up falling for him. The comics is a great love story for those two, above everything else. You have betrayals, you have literally everything in the comics. Besides G.I. Joe, like I said, I did pick up Shogun Warriors, trying to get closer to finishing my collection. Shogun Warriors 14. Amazing. I don't remember the stories for these things. But, I mean, they're anime robots. It's like Godzilla. You gotta buy them. Shogun Warrior 15. Where Raiden gets under control of somebody else. $16. I kind of missed that too. On a lot of these older comics, they have the back. Usually it's the same back where you can buy the army toys, the little figurines. $1.98 for 100 toy soldiers and a Foot Locker box. Can you imagine the price today? I mean, I've seen the soldiers in a brown container. I don't know how much is in it. Maybe 20 for like $7, I think. $7, $8. Jeez. Oop. 17. Where a kid breaks into I think it was Combattler. I think the pilot dies. No. Vanguard. Shogun was Raiding, Voltis 5, and Vanguard. And I think, Voltis 5 was several different machines. So you would need several different pilots. Raiding and Vanguard was just one pilot each. And then 18 with Megatron. Just not the Megatron you guys were thinking of. I think the final comic is 20. So I might be missing 4 or 5 issues of Shogun Warriors for the complete thing, which is amazing. I would love to get the complete Marvel collection for Godzilla. Like I said, for G.I. Joe and Transformers, just certain comics, because I wanted the omnibus. That's what I got, so I'm happy with that. I did get the Godzilla omnibus compendium, whatever you want to call it. But I would still like the entire comic collection. To me, it's worth something more. Because my grandpa started helping me collect those comics. So apparently Transformers should be shipping out in December. So hopefully I will be getting it in January, maybe. Excuse me. Hopefully. And then hopefully I will be getting the Thundercats omnibus compendium. I think it starts shipping out in December as well, late December. So hopefully in January, they did get the first copies of each of what it's going to look like, and they did show it, and it looks better than what I expected it to look like. You see a lot of these compendiums, omnibus, and they look cool and all, but nothing looks as great as it does in the hardcover versions. Unfortunately, I don't know if they're going to do regular versions where anybody can buy them. I hope they do, because I'm pretty sure some of you might want the old Thundercats comics. I do hope they make the Silverhawks. I do hope they make Visionaries. And Humanoids would be great. I don't have room for them, but I mean, it would be cool. So I did kind of finish cleaning some stuff. As you can see, I moved the cartoons over to the middle. I then clean everything. But I did mostly everything. Got things kind of fixed the way I want them to look now. Still working on stuff though. But yeah, there's so classifieds will always be coming in, at least for a while. It's going to be a bunch coming in this year, little by little, trickling in. But like I said, I did order a few things online. And when I say a few things, I mean maybe 4 action figures, 2 games, but in my defense, I'm trying to finish my collections. The good thing though is they up my hours, so I am going to be working a lot more. Like I said, possibly less. Toy hunts, but also means more stuff coming in online. Faster I get to complete my collections. The one thing that I am pretty sad about is that NECA apparently has canceled the Dungeons and Dragons. So there is only 3 bad guys and 3 good guys, instead of all of the bad guys and all of the good guys, which kind of sucks. But I do have finally all 3 of the bad guys. I would have loved to have the Dark Wizard as a complete collection, but what can you do? I also have something coming in to complete my Super 7 Power Rangers until they bring out more. Hopefully next collection to complete is the Super 7 Silverhawks. Need to complete the NECA Gargoyles, especially since they canceled that. Come on, NECA, what the hell? You're canceling literally all of your projects. Luckily, most of what I want is out. Super 7 is being a bit slow, but I understand they have several IPs they're working on. Hopefully that means maybe I can finally order the Mask Switchblade. I don't know. Stay tuned. We'll see what's going on. Thanks for watching, guys. That's the reveal. Pretty sad, but pretty awesome as well. Take care. Be safe. Aloha.